But first, today marks the 75th anniversary of the NHS. London has long been a trailblazer for its healthcare, leading the way on pioneering treatments and surgeries which then influenced the world over. The UK's first heart transplant was carried out at the National Heart Hospital in London in the 1960s. 23-month-old Simon Bostic was the first recipient of a successful bone marrow transplant from an unrelated donor in the UK at Westminster Children's Hospital in 1973. And in 1987, Britain's first ever purpose-built AIDS ward was opened at the Middlesex Hospital by Princess Diana. Today, NHS staff around the capital have been celebrating the milestone in their own way, as Divya Kohli has been finding out.
As Head of Nursing for Children's Services, Sarah McLagan leads a team on the Rainbow Children's Unit at Croydon University Hospital. Much of her job now is non-clinical, but she still loves being hands-on.
I still come onto the ward every day and still come and give the children a cuddle or come and look after them clinically, because it's really important to me that I go back to my roots in nursing. Every day I come to work and it's great. I'm really lucky to come to work and look after children like Abdullah and have amazing staff like we've got on the ward. They make it special every day.
The NHS faces so many challenges on a daily basis, but the 75th anniversary is a moment to pause and reflect on what has been achieved. Launched on the 5th of July 1948, just after the Second World War, the NHS had a mission to ensure everybody, regardless of means, age, sex or occupation, would benefit from the best medical services available. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
75 years on, new babies are being born to the same fundamental care that new parents can rely on.
Do you think you would have been able to do it without the NHS? Just tell me about the support you received.
No,
Definitely not.
definitely not.
Yeah,
Definitely
definitely not.
not.
I'm glad that the services was available when we needed it, because it just made everything quite straightforward and just less pressure.
Much has changed over 75 years. The technology, new ways of working and the demand for services as seen during the COVID pandemic.
Yes, it's difficult. There's always challenges in the health service. It's a publicly funded service. Demands are very significant. We're just past COVID and we are recovering from that. So there's lots of challenges, but the bottom line is we have got amazing staff who every day put in a huge amount of commitment and care to look after the population.
Today, as the NHS faces huge pressures, thousands have been celebrating across London. The Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh said thank you to staff at Westminster Abbey, as hospitals say thanks in their own special way.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear NHS. Happy birthday to you.
Divya Kohli reporting there. Joining me now is Dr. Ellie Cannon. Ellie, you were in the Abbey, weren't you? What was it like?
It was amazing, actually. It was so lovely to be celebrating the NHS, and it really felt like a Thanksgiving service. It felt almost like a coronation or a royal wedding. It was marvellous, and such a range of people, a range of staff, real, genuine heroes of the NHS were there. It was fabulous.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because we use it every day in such different ways, but it is also a very British institution, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, and that really struck me today in talking about the NHS as an employer, as an innovator. Obviously, I'm sort of always talking about sort of the NHS on TV, and actually I'm always talking about negative stories, and the truth is actually there's amazing things that are happening every day from NHS charities. We heard today in the Abbey from doctors who saved a lot of Ukrainian children who are undergoing cancer treatment, who continued their cancer treatment here in the UK, and it's really phenomenal what happens every day.
It is obviously a day of celebration. I don't want to drag it down, but I mean, for you, how hard is it to have that celebration on the one hand, but we know, of course, for doctors, for nurses and for patients, the reality can be quite different.
Yeah, I suppose we do have to sort of like separate those two things. It can be very good and there can also be big problems, and I think that's really how I see the NHS. I think there are obviously huge problems in terms of the workforce and the waiting lists that my patients suffer, but actually that doesn't mean that every day we're still not doing great things, because we really are.
If we look towards the next 75 years, whenever we talk about the future of the NHS, it turns into a political ding-dong, doesn't it?
Yeah,
You know,
of course.
investment and reform, etc. Well, what do we, as patients and as taxpayers, need to accept and change about our thinking if we're to maybe raise the debate about how we keep this institution?
Well, actually, I mean, I surprised myself by really liking this week what Sajid Javid said. He was one of the former health secretaries, and he spoke about actually having a year-long Royal Commission, taking it out of politics. Because as you say, we've always got these populist approaches and sort of sound bites. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And none of it's worked, as we can see. And the NHS has changed so much. And actually, we do need an independent commission to have a look, to look at the workforce, to look at what we can do, and hopefully take us into a successful further 75 years.
Let's go back to the celebrations then.
Yes.
Last night you were judging NHS photos. I think we've got some of them here. What were you looking for when you looked for winners?
Well, this photo here, this is this lady. Well, that was Mother Obi, who's an amazing nurse who's worked in the NHS longer than I've even been alive, and I met her yesterday. And yeah, we just saw like the amazing different things. Look at that, the ambulance coming through the snow. This is the COVID vaccines in a sharps bin from the first day of COVID vaccinations. That was under our innovation category. It just showed the breadth, really.
Yeah.
The photo you saw there, which looked like a nurse and a patient, was in fact a hairdresser and a patient,
really?
because there are volunteer hairdressers who go into hospitals and work with NHS staff to make people feel good when they're in hospital. So it's just the amazing breadth of what the NHS does.
Yeah, amazing range. Dr. Ellie, wonderful to speak to you again on a happy occasion as well. Thank you. More on the 75-year anniversary of the NHS coming up after us on the ITV Evening News. Here's Lucrezia.
Fury at plans to shut almost every railway station ticket office